Hi, it's Jason from Fraser Valley Rose Farm. Today I want to talk to you about fertilizer for your roses. What should you feed your roses so you get big, beautiful blooms like these ones all the way through your season? Is there a difference between organic and conventional fertilizer? Should you go granular or liquid feed? I'm going to try to cover the entire range of topics here. I guess the first question I'd answer is, why should you treat your roses differently than any other garden shrub or plant? And the answer to that is only that roses are a repeat blooming shrubs, and because they're so particularly high performers in the garden, because they go straight from bloom set to bloom set to bloom set all the way through the season, they in general require more repeat feedings or a higher level of fertility all the way through the season if you want them to perform their best. And so I'll try to focus on that a little bit in this video here, not as in over fertilizing them, but at least trying to provide them with something all the way through the season. Now, I hope you didn't come here looking for me to try to sell you a particular product or a particular brand of fertilizer, put it on my online store and have you order it there. I think that's the wrong approach. It's kind of a cop-out. With the right information, I'm confident that you can find something locally that will suit your needs well, that isn't going to cost you an arm and a leg. You can buy it at your local garden center or feed store. You can buy it in a bigger bulk, and your roses will be happier for it, and so will you, I hope. So the question then becomes, do you choose organic or conventional fertilizer? I guess that's the first way I'll break it down. And the answer I have to that, it varies a little bit by the use. So for roses in the ground in the garden, like these ones here, I prefer organic. And for the ones that I use in my greenhouse, I go for a conventional slow release fertilizer. I'll discuss that in a minute, but first the question of organic for the roses in the ground. The organic fertilizer I'm talking about here, I'm not talking about certified organic production or anything like that, that sort of trademark brand name production system. I'm just talking about anything that comes from organic sources like alfalfa meal, mushroom manure, chicken manure, cow manure, all of those composts and manures and things that are derived from natural sources. The reason I prefer those is because they foster a healthy soil. I guess the old expression goes, feed the soil, not the plant. And the reason for that is because your roses are going to get everything they need from the soil, including not just those major nutrients that I'm going to discuss in a moment here, not just the N, P, and the K, but all of the minor nutrients, all of their water. They rely on a good, healthy root system, and they rely on a good, healthy population of life in the soil beneath them to support their growth. So feed the soil, not the plant. Okay, what does that mean? Well, in general, if you use something like alfalfa meal or alfalfa pellets and you put that onto the ground, you have a big bulk of it here. Let me show you. Okay, so this is a big 40-pound bag of alfalfa pellets that I picked up at the local feed store for like next to nothing. So you can see it's a big bulk of material that can go into your garden. Here's what it looks like here. It's pellets like this. So this is basically dried alfalfa grass that's been pelletized, and obviously it's usually for animal feed, and that's fine. What I do is I take that, I scratch away some of the mulch at the base of my plant, drop it down, and I do that 2 cupfuls at a time. By adding that amount of bulk to the base of my rose, that amount of organic matter to the base of my rose, the soil organisms, the worms and the other things that live down there, the bacteria and the fungus and everything, are breaking down that alfalfa meal and turning it into the nutrients that your plants need. So it has to go through a processing step from the soil life to provide your roses with the fertilizer. In contrast, a conventional chemical fertilizer like this, which you can use as well and you'll get good results. This one is 8-12-6 on the package. That's the N, the P, and the K. In comparison, the alfalfa meal is roughly a 2-1-2. So you can see if I was adding this, I would add just a small amount per the package requirements. The alfalfa meal I would add in a big bulk, and what I actually use is about 2 cups of the alfalfa pellets every time I feed one rose, a medium-sized rose like this one here. And if I'm going for a really large rose, I might even go up to 3 cups. That's a big difference in the bulk and a big difference in how much food you're giving to the critters that are living in the soil, all of the other soil life that's going to feed your rose. So I'm keeping a healthier soil by using alfalfa. Now you might get the impression from the amount that I'm talking about alfalfa that it is the only one I recommend, and that's not true. It's just the one I have on hand, the one I find locally here, and it's convenient for me to buy. You can use anything. You can use locally here spent mushroom compost or spent mushroom manure from what they use in growing mushrooms is available in bulk. You can buy that, and it's similar to the 212 that you have from your alfalfa. If you use cow manure or pig manure or sheep manure, those are similar as well. So they're the kinds of things that you can apply by the shovelful instead of by the tablespoonful. The other disadvantage of a chemical fertilizer like this one here is that with regular use, there is some chance that you can, because it's a salt product, it's basically soluble salts that are directly available to your plant. Because it's like that, it can tend to build up in the soil a little bit, and if over applied, it can be quite dangerous to your plants. So if you add a little too much, it'll actually burn the roots of your roses. Whereas the organic fertilizers tend to be a lot more forgiving in that way. Now, let's talk a little bit about that NPK that I talked about a second ago. NPK are the 3 major fertilizers that every fertilizer company needs to list on the packaging of their product by law. The N being nitrogen, the P being phosphorus, and the K being potassium. And I know this is review for most gardeners out there, but I'm going to go through it anyway just so you can make some right decisions on feeding your roses. So the old garden expression goes up, down, and all around. The N being associated with lush top growth on your plants, the P being associated with root growth, and the K being an all-around nutrient for the health of your plants. Now, the one thing I will say on that, a little adjustment to that old garden expression, is that the down, the phosphorus, is also strongly associated with stem elongation and flowering. So a lot of people who buy rose fertilizers like to look for a slightly higher middle number. Now, that's fine. You can do that. I've had good results working with just alfalfa meal and fish fertilizer, neither one of which have a lot of phosphorus, and I've heard the same thing from other rose growers as well. So I guess the point of that would be that roses are pretty adaptable to a wide range of nutrient situations. And as long as you have a general balance, as long as you're providing something in all 3, your roses will probably do fine. But if you wanted, in an organic situation, to boost your phosphorus, you could do so by adding bone meal, you could do so by adding bat guano, or you could do something like this. This here is a pre-formulated, all-purpose, balanced organic fertilizer. I'm not selling the brand, I'm just saying that there are blends out there that take care of that for you. So if you don't want to add bone meal yourself, you can just buy a balanced organic fertilizer like that. That one was 444 on the NPK, which is actually, pretty decent for roses. Now, I have to talk about the question of, should you buy something in the store that is called a rose food? And you see this all the time, and it's a bit of a marketing thing. If you go to your local garden store or hardware store, and they'll have something on the shelf that says rose fertilizer, or another one that says fertilizer for bulbs, and a third one that says for veggies and tomatoes. I even saw the other day when I was in the store one that was like for knockout roses, and another one that was for heirloom tomatoes. And I thought, is anybody buying the idea that your formulation of fertilizer can be that specific to a plant? Well, I guess somebody's buying it, otherwise they wouldn't be making it. What's inside of those packages is virtually identical. The formulation is very, very close, and for the most part, you can interchange those completely freely. So if you find something that you like that says for bulbs on it, but it's got an NPK that you like, basically balanced, maybe a little bit higher in phosphorus, then go ahead and use that. The only slight exception I'll make to what I've just said there is that if you find a fertilizer in the store that specifically says for rhododendrons, camellias, azaleas, or hydrangeas, sometimes they'll put an acidifying agent into that mix, and that will make it inappropriate for roses unless you have an alkaline soil, in which case you could use that too. Okay, having talked about that bulk fertilizer that I apply, the organic fertilizer that I apply to the base of each rose, I guess I should talk a little about timing. You want to keep your roses well supplied to keep them blooming throughout the season. I usually give them 3 feedings per year. Once at the first time that I do my first pruning in February, again in April, and then a third time in June, and then I stop to let my roses prepare for the winter. Does that cover them entirely? Well, actually, if you want to see them recover very, very quickly from their flush of flowers. So once the roses bloom like this, they're going to take a little pause, and then they're going to send up fresh, new, reddish growth that's going to indicate that they're going into another flowering cycle. And if you want them to recover quickly, the best way you can do that is to apply some liquid feed fertilizer. Liquid feed is a little different than the stuff I apply at the base. The organic fertilizer I apply at the base, the goal there is to provide your roses with a baseline of fertilizer all the way through the season, just slowly as the soil life processes that fertilizer. The liquid feed that I'm going to talk about now, the goal of that is to give your roses quick access to fertilizer. So every time you finish with one of those flowering flushes, throw on some liquid feed. It should spur on that new growth. Or you could go on a cycle of about every 3 weeks to every month, just to keep your roses well supplied. You can stay with the organic approach, that's fine. I sometimes use liquid fish fertilizer like this, which I think the NPK balance on that is 3-1-2. Or you can go, if you want something with a little bit higher phosphorus, or if you want to go with something that's just cheap and easy, you can go with the conventional chemical fertilizers. You'll find those in your local store, Miracle Grow or any other brand of quick release, fully soluble, water soluble fertilizer. I like to apply mine through a hose end sprayer like this. I just find it to be the quickest way. You can do that again with either one, either the organic or the chemical fertilizer, and I just find it's more convenient to apply it to a large number of roses if I use the hose end sprayer. If you're going to do that, use an EC pen, that's a total dissolved salts meter, to determine how concentrated your actual output water is. So if I take this, attach it to a hose, I spray it into a cup, and then I test that with my EC meter, and I'm looking for an EC somewhere between 1 and 1.5 for a good feeding for my roses. Okay, let's talk about containers. Okay, so I grow a lot of roses in containers like this one here, Sophie's Perpetual. I grow them for sale at the farmer's market. But whether you're growing them for sale or whether you're growing them around your garden or on your patio or deck in containers, it's the same question: what fertilizer should you use? And I reverse course on this. Whereas normally in the ground, I talk about those bulk organic fertilizers as the most advantageous. In this case, I'm not trying to feed the soil, I'm trying to feed the plant directly. And trying to maintain a healthy balance of soil organisms in a pot of a limited size can be tricky. The pot does tend to heat up too quickly. It does tend to have fluctuations in moisture. So trying to maintain a good balance of soil life in there isn't ideal. So I use the slow release, that sort of yellowish or orangish prills that you see. Osmocote is one brand, Multicote, Fluorocote, all those coated brands of slow release fertilizer. I choose something that is either a 4-month or a 6-month release. I put that into the pot at repotting time in the spring. And if I'm not going to repot, then I top dress with it. Now, one thing I will say about rates is it's better to choose the low rate or the medium rate than it is the high rate. It's generally safer to aim for lower levels of fertilizer and then top up with liquid feed if you see any signs of yellowing or paleness in the leaves. Then you can top up with liquid feed as you go along. Before I wrap up the video, I wanted to talk quickly about highly processed organic fertilizers. I know I've spent a little bit of time in this video talking about organic, but I want to draw a distinction in saying that a bulk organic fertilizer like mushroom manure, compost, alfalfa pellets is a different animal than those highly processed organic fertilizers that you'll find in the store, oftentimes with much higher numbers. They're a blended fertilizer that may be a 10-10-10, and those can be you have to treat them a little bit like a hybrid between the organic fertilizers and the conventional fertilizers, insofar as, yes, they're organic, yes, they're going to improve your soil, but you don't want to apply too much of them, and they also can burn your plants quickly if you use them inappropriately. So for that reason, just use caution with the blended processed organic fertilizers. They're not quite the same thing as a bulk organic fertilizer. All right, I hope that's answered some of your questions about how to feed your roses. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or if you just want to share information about your favorite fertilizer for roses, go ahead and drop those in the comments below the video, and thank you so much for watching today.